and welcome to the channel. My name is Mel and I'm a crafter, knitter, living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. And if you're new here, I live here on a small holding, or sometimes called a small homestead, where we have chickens and ducks and cats and try to grow some of our own vegetables as well. And today is mostly, I think it's all knitting today on the podcast. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I think I've got everything in there. All the links and such like will be in the description box below, and that goes for my own links and the ones for the patterns for the items that I'm going to show today. It has been a few weeks while I've been doing Vlogtober, and if you've been watching Vlogtober, thank you so much. I think I'm about caught up on all of your comments now. There was so many, so thank you very much. Yes, so if you have been watching, you will have seen pretty much everything that I have here, so I hope that is okay. But I did want to round up everything that I had made over the last few weeks. I am already starting my festive knitting with a pair of Christmas socks. I couldn't resist. I've been just itching to start that kind of planning stage for the festive season, and in doing so kind of working with some festive yarn has been really nice too. I have many finished objects, I have many finished socks, but I also have other things as well, and I actually only have 2 active whips at the moment, which is quite a small amount for me. So we shall dive right in with the finished objects. I know there's at least one person always asks me every time I wear this sweater on the podcast. It is not a handmade item. It was picked up in a charity shop. It's a big batwing oversized rusty coloured sweater, and it's made with like acrylic yarn, and I love this. I picked this up several years ago somewhere in one of the charity shops on Orkney, and if I'm travelling, if I'm going anywhere off island, this is the jumper that I take because it's nice and big and oversized. I can throw it over many layers and it packs down small because it's quite thin and lightweight. So somebody's gonna ask me that is why I think maybe I could get some like knit fabric, or get out the knitting machine and make big panels of fabric and construct something similar to this. But if I wanted to knit it by hand, it would take quite some time, and I don't have the patience for that. So finished objects I am not wearing. Let's start with my one garment knit. And this one I ended up adjusting. I'm not sure if I mentioned it towards the end of Vlogtober or not. It is my Wild Posy sweater by Melody Hoffman. I'm not wearing it today because I'm in my loungy sweatpants, and it just doesn't look quite the same with loungy sweatpants, but I will insert some footage somewhere on screen, hopefully, if future Mel would oblige. It is going to be very difficult to see because it is in a charcoal, almost black yarn, but fortunately the light is helping me out today. It has been a little bit strange, the light, but it is also helping to show up the texture in the yoke. It doesn't show up very well, but it gives a little bit of interest to what is basically an almost black sweater that I can wear with pretty much anything. The pattern itself is the Wild Posy sweater by Melody Hoffman, like I said, and I have chosen the version Luna. There are 2 versions of this pattern. The Luna picture for the Luna pattern, you can't actually see the pattern very well. She has also used a dark yarn, but the Flora version you can see better. The difference between the Flora and Luna is this kind of textured long stitch slip stitch design is also repeated at the top and the bottom, where these eyelets are making kind of little floral holes, lace design. And originally I was going to do this, but it just wasn't working out with this yarn, and you couldn't see it in the charcoal yarn anyway. I had made a Luna in a light coloured yarn before, and I really loved it, and look, I love the fit. I wear it quite regularly at home, so I decided to go with that same design again. Like I said, originally I was going to do the other variation, but I ended up doing the Luna version again. And you can kind of see these long stitches here, if the light will oblige, in the design, and there are kind of long stitches on the diagonal as well on the yoke. But it if the light catches it just right, you can see it. It is a really nice fit, this design. I have spoken before on the podcast where I find that round yoke sweaters, for my bust size, the yokes can be a bit too big and they can make me look quite broad on the shoulders. So before I was going to do the first one of these a couple of years ago, I thought I'm going to make a smaller yoke and then expand out for the bust size. And when I came to do the Flora, I found that it kind of already did that. When you start out the pattern, the stitch count, there isn't a different stitch count. I have to apologise for the occasional noise. My husband is working out in the yard. He's using the circular saw. So if you hear the occasional saw noise, that is what it is. And I will try to edit out as much as possible. But it's a bit difficult in the middle of a sentence. So the stitch count for this, it doesn't start out with a different stitch count for every size. It starts out with a stitch count for certain ranges, and then once you get past a certain point there are more increases to increase to the different sizes. So therefore it isn't just kind of like the wider your bust, the wider your shoulders, which in reality if I put on 4 stone, doesn't necessarily mean my shoulders are going to get much broader. My bust size and my belly might, but you know what I mean. So I found that I didn't need to do my original plans, which was great. And this was the first pattern I had found that I'd actually done that. So for this version I've done full length sleeves. I've done a different decrease rate for the sleeves to the pattern. I did the same decrease rate that I'd made notes for my first one because it fits really nice. The pattern I think calls for a 5.5mm needle. I don't have a 5.5mm needle, so I used a 5mm for the body and a 4.5mm for the ribbing. And my gauge, I'm not sure if I've written my gauge down. I haven't, but I must have hit roundabout gauge, otherwise I would have made a note of it. The yarn that I've used is the same yarn that I used last time, just in a different colour. Last time, this is a Drops Air. Drops Air. If the camera will not focus on me. There we go, Drops Air, which is I think it's a blown baby alpaca. Baby alpaca merino, blown. 65% alpaca, 28% polyamide and 7% merino wool. Oh, I've gone all dark now. And this is the colour 06. Previously I used a light beige colour for a previous sweater. What else have I done? The neckline has a slight rolled collar with a 1x1 rib, which is as per the pattern. The sleeves, what I've done is a 1x1 rib again, and I did kind of like what I made the Halloo sweater by Kilt & Hunter not long ago, and in it all the hems have got like a slight rolled out hem, and to do so you are making a row of knit stitches after your rib before you do the cast off. So that is what I did here. And also, as well as doing a stretchy cast off, I cast off in knit rather than in 1x1 rib, which makes the edge of the fabric roll out over, which might not show up very well actually on camera because it is black, but in person it just looks nice. It kind of matches up with the collar. For the bottom of the sweater, I did my preferred bottom rib, which is a 1x1 broken rib, and I just cast off in pattern so that everything would sit straight. And I think that's everything to say about this. I've done my needle sizes and my adjustments. Oh, the only other thing that I did change was I added extra short rows at the back of the neck before starting the textured yoke. So at the front, below the rib, is about just under an inch of fabric, but at the back there is more like 1.5 inches. So I've done about 1 inch of short rows at the back to account for the back of the neck. So that is my first finished object and my only garment finished object. I also have, apart from the many socks, I have accessories as well. So we will go into that, and I've just realised I have forgotten to bring a pattern. Oh, I actually have a photocopy of this one. I have this pattern in a book, but I had a photocopy. I photocopied it so that I can make notes on it rather than writing in the book. So fortunately I have it to hand. So I made a pair of wristies, and these have been on the needle since last year, and I had a right carry on with them. These are the Kelly Muffs by, what's her name? Something Spillane. I'm not sure if it's on my printout. If not, I will pop the name of the designer up on the screen. Oh, it is here. Don't worry, it is here. It's Spilly Jane, aka Jane Dupois. It is in a book that was pulled together by Mary Jane Mucklestone called Fair Isle Style. And these are the wristies. And I love them now that I have finished them. They have come out fabulous. They are covered in these lovely little toadstools, which I did think about putting little white dots on, but decided it would look better without. But they obviously are supposed to be a little fly agaric. The original pattern has them in red too, although I have made the stems a brighter white. So the original design in the book looks like this, and I have made a few adjustments to make these work for me. The reason they've took so long is because I had trouble with size and gauge. So originally I started knitting these in probably 2.25mm needle, and I liked the colour work and how it was coming out in it. But the stitch count for the wristies, I think I had got probably that much knit on them. They were going to be tiny on my hands. So I tried the next needle up. This was last autumn. I tried the next needle up and still wasn't right, and I tried the next needle up, and yes, they fit, but the colour work looked appalling. It just looked so uncrisp that I just wasn't happy with them. I mean, these are not, I haven't blocked these yet, so they're not perfect, and I don't know if I will bother because they're just wristies, and I will probably just wear them around the house or around the garden, so it doesn't really matter. So I got so frustrated with them last autumn that I put them aside and decided I would just let them simmer. This autumn I picked them up and I thought, I just want these, I want these off the needles. I want them done. I'm sick of them hanging around. So I pulled back and decided to do the original 2.25mm, which I liked the stitch, the pattern, the colourwork definition of, and instead I added an extra number of stitches. The original cast on is for 56 stitches and I did 68 stitches, and I found that was much better. I think that is an extra, is it one extra pattern repeat? Yeah, it's one extra pattern repeat all the way around. I also did an extra pattern repeat in the length. So when I started knitting it, you are supposed to start the thumb right down here. So your wristies would be incredibly short. They'd be the cuff would be here. It would literally be little palm wristies. I've obviously got much bigger housewife hands compared to the model in this photo. If I was knitting for a child, they would have fit lovely. But if you imagine, they would have been sort of that short. They would have been quite short with a bit of cuff on, and I wouldn't have been happy with them. So I did an extra, basically I knit the entire chart first, and then I did a repeat of this section of the chart or wherever they match up, and added the thumb hole then. Also I added extra rows in the background colour before knitting the cuff for the thumb. I believe on the pattern you knit the rib colour there rather than the background colour, but I thought the background colour would look better. I also did extra stitches for the thumb as well. This pattern doesn't have a thumb gusset, and many people had said it weren't very comfortable, so I thought if I just make that bigger, that'd be more comfortable, and they feel fine to me. They reverse, they're not one-handed, you can put them on either hand. But because I've put extra stitches on the thumb, there's no pulling there, it's not tight, there's no restriction. And yes, I really like them. It has 2 by 2 twisted rib for all of the ribbing, and I'm really happy they're done, and I'm really happy with them now that they are finished. The yarns I've used are all one type of yarn. I will try and find a ball of yarn. This is one of the balls. It is Drops Flora. There seems to be a lot of, apologies again, a lot of, it shouldn't be for long, it's just cutting lengths of wood. All of the yarns are Drops Flora. There seems to be a lot of drops in my selection this episode, and it is in the colour 0, well, one of them is 07. I don't have labels for them all, I will try and remember them. So we have beige, we have red, we have, is that dark beige or whoops, dark beige or light brown, and we have green. They're not very magically named, most of these. And this particular shade of white, it is the cool white. Do I have a label for that one? I have number 15, I have number 7. Probably not, I've probably thrown them away. There are 2 whites in the Drops Flora. There is a natural white, which is just an undyed yarn, which is more on the creamier side, and there is this white, which is a cool, like a cool toned white, and those are the ones that I have used for this. I don't think there's any other colours in there. I think that's all of them. Yeah. And the Drops Flora is not just a wool base. I really like this base. I've made a cardigan with it before. It is 65% wool, 35% alpaca. And they are nice and soft, and they're much softer than the plain wool Drops fingering weight, which is the... I'm not sure what the fingering weight is. Drops Fable is the sock yarn. I can't remember what the just wool is. I just edited out a whole load of sawing. So that is the Kelly Moss. Next up, I'm just looking at my pile, we have, let's go with one of the pairs of socks because they are closest to hand. These ones was a bit of a new experience for me. Normally I knit all my socks toe up. These are knit top down, and it's the first pair of top down socks I have ever completed. The light has gone very strange, I do apologise for that. These are the Scare Me socks, and these are a Halloween socks. I am not being very organised today. I have my sock blocker here. I will pop it on the sock blocker and see if I can adjust this light actually. Okay, I don't know why my camera is playing up. So this is the Scare Me socks, which have cat hairs on them, and I really like them. They are a colourwork ankle and a striped sock. They are knit top down, which again is a new experience for me. I've learned a few things about knitting top down socks, other than the fact that I'm not overly keen on it. It is doable and they fit fine, which is great, although I'm not overly fussed on the way the toes are finished out with the Kitchener stitch. It's just not as neat as a Turkish toe-up cast on. So the socks, the first one I cast on loosely, a long tail cast on, and did a 2x2 rib, and the second sock I actually went up to a 2.75mm needle for the cast on, because I just felt that it needed a little bit extra room. Just, I mean, they go on, but we could do with a little bit extra. The pattern has you go up a stitch count for the colourwork section and then decrease down, and honestly you can't really tell. I'm quite impressed with how well that worked out. The colourwork fits fine over my foot. it feels a little stranger to put them on because there isn't that stretch that you normally get from your socks, but that's fine too. I do quite like the detailing at the side of the heel here. It has these like pearl bump design down the side of the heel, which I really like, and it has obviously a gusset too. I have not made joggler stripes. It is quite messy on the other side. We're going to ignore that. The pattern is the Scare Me socks. It is actually not called that on Ravelry. It is in French, and I haven't written down the French unfortunately, so I will have to pop the name up on the screen up here. And there it comes in 3 different sizes, and it has many colourwork charts for various designs for ghosts and skulls and pumpkins and all sorts of things, which is great, and I thoroughly intend to make every single one of them. In fact, next year John has requested ones with ghosts and little black cats sitting upright on it for some Halloween socks for himself, because next year I plan on making a box of socks for my husband. I have been making one for myself this year, which is why I have so many socks, and next year I'm going to make some for him. The designer is Lysandra Horden, and obviously I will link all the patterns below. The rest of the sock is just my standard 2.25mm needle, 9-inch circulars, and 2.25mm magic loop for doing things like the toes and the cuffs. So that is my first pair of socks for this episode. There is a few more, and I will try to whiz through those as quickly as possible. The second pair I've had on my queue for quite some time, and I have been mentioning it many times on my autumn knitting plans. This year I finally made them, and it is a pair of cable socks. These are a Little Hocus Pocus socks by This Handmade Life. It is a free pattern, and it is cables, and I don't really do cables because I find them slow and it slows down your knitting, and to me sock knitting is kind of my go-to relaxation mindless knitting. But I put them beside my seat on the sofa where I sit in the morning, and basically every morning I did one pattern repeat, and these actually went by really quite quickly doing that. It didn't take too long to do one pattern repeat, and over a couple of weeks they were done. Really happy with these. It has kind of encouraged me to do more pattern socks in the future and kind of do the same sort of thing. Other than that, all I did was these are a top down sock, and I did not knit these top down. All I did is I knit the colourwork chart, the cable chart even, into my usual vanilla sock pattern, which is a Turkish cast on, toe up, gusset, heel flap with eye patridge on the heel turn, but just stocking it on the back of the heel, and a 2x2 rib at the top. I've knit these on 2.25mm needle, both for magic loop sections and for the 9-inch circular sections, and yeah, pretty much my usual vanilla sock but with extra bits. The original pattern, like I said, is by This Handmade Life, A Little Hocus Pocus socks, and I'm glad I finally actually got them off and done and created. The yarns I used are more drops. Drops Fable in the colourway Rust, which is 110, and I also used the Regia Eco Line Uni 4-ply in this dark green, which doesn't want to show on camera. Okay, I'm hoping adjusting the camera angle will have helped, and my settings. I think it's just because I've got one light over here and one light over here, it's causing problems. So the green is Regia Eco Line in 3004, which I think is just called green, which is this lovely dark forest green, and the Drops Fable in 1110. And yeah, let's talk about something other than socks for a little while. So what have we got? We have got my shawl. This has been a shawl a long time in the making. This is my Dotted Arrays shawl by Stephen West. I made one of these a few years ago for my mum, and it was in like neon colours. This time I wanted one in autumn colours for myself. This yarn, originally I had planned on doing a different shawl with this yarn and fibre, but decided upon the dotted rays because I just love my mum's one, so I wanted one for myself. So just make sure I show the front and not the back. Is that the front? That's the back. That's the... which is the front and which is the back? Right, that's the front. So this is my dotted rays shawl, and it is nice and big and fabulous. Ta-da! You can really see the colours there right at the end, where each ray point kind of starts over here, and I'm really happy with this. The yarn is made with some hand spun yarn with some fibre that I had planned to make a shawl with. So I spun up 2 braids of fibre from Created by LCB. One colourway is Spiced Pumpkin. There's her logo. Created by LCB. She's an American based dyer, and this is Spiced Pumpkin, which is which one? I have this much left over of, which is a multicoloured browns and oranges yarn. And I also have Pumpkin Ale, the other one, which the cat has just knocked on the floor, which is a semi-solid orange yarn. And I spun up each braid and I plied them together. I ended up having more of the orange because I accidentally spun this up considerably thinner than my multicoloured one. So what I ended up doing was, when you make the shawl, you have these eyelet rows, and where the eyelet rows are, I've used the orange, the orange yarn on its own, which most of the time doesn't show up, but then occasionally you get this nice thin stripe where those eyelet rows are. And I also use the orange for the I-cord bind off, which is all the way along the long bottom of the shawl, which really doesn't bother me to do because all it really is knitting and slipping. The pattern, I think, is it 4mm needle? Yes, it's a 4mm needle yarn, even, and that's what I use. That's what I used last time. If the camera shakes, the cat is rubbing on the tripod. And yes, that is my dotted rays shawl, and I love it. The fibre, which I forgot to mention, is, I think is it Rambouillet? Yes, it's 100% Rambouillet fibre, and it's quite a spongy yarn, although now that I've blocked it is less spongy, which is great because it was a bit too big and bulky here and not enough wingspan. But having blocked it, it's now longer, so it hangs further down, the arms hang further down, and it's not quite so big and bulky around the neck. But it is a lovely squishy soft fibre. It's not smooth like merino, but it's not prickly. It's nice and just squishy. Spongy is the best word I would describe Rambouillet as, is spongy. Okay, we have a few more pairs of socks. We have another 3 pairs of socks to get through, so I'll get through them as quickly as possible. I have fibre in my eyes and fibre in my mouth. It could be cat hairs though, because I've just let the cat back out. Okay, first up we have these socks, which I love. I think they're lovely and bright and colourful, and they were, to me, felt slightly Halloweenish, which is why I chose to make them. My usual vanilla socks, like I said before, Turkish cast on, toe up, eye of partridge, stockinette, gusset, 2x2 rib, stretchy bind off. Every single episode you will get the same sock recipe. Maybe one day I will do, one day maybe I will do an instructional video. The yarn that I've used, the main yarn is Opal. I'm gonna struggle with this. Hundertwasserwerk is the range, and the colourway is 781, and it is called Green Street. And this is the yarn. I intend to make another pair at some point with purple toes and heels, because it has got some purpley tones in there as well, and I think that would look fabulous as another Halloweeny kind of cartoon Halloweeny kind of vibe. And the contrast toes and heels are another opal yarn. It is just the opal, you know, standard single solid colour 4-ply, and the colourway is, which is colourway to translate because it's in German, I think, which is colourway and which is batch number. Okay, cut 781. I don't think that those numbers are batch numbers and colourways. It's confusing, but it's like a neon orange, not quite neon, but it's very much a tango orange. It's a bright orange. It's not a natural type of orange, and that's the one that I've used. I'll show you the numbers on the side, but I'm not sure which is the colourway and which is the batch number. Yeah, lot number. So that is my contrast toes and heels for them. Hello camera. I'm having so many trouble with this camera in this room sometimes with the lighting, but it is the best well lit room in the middle of the day, so until the sun lounge is finished, which it'll be a little while yet, that might be a good room to record in, but currently it is not, because John is building it right now. Okay, speaking of Halloween socks, I did another fabulous pair of Halloween socks. Very, very Halloweenish, will you see. If you haven't seen them already, hold your horses. Just hang on, because you're gonna love them. Okay, these are super Halloweeny. I love these so much. My usual taupe recipe, so I won't go through that again. The yarns I've used 2 different types of yarns here. For the contrast toes and heels, I've used Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply, signature 4-ply in the colourway Amethyst, which is number 2185. But what I also did was include stripes of it in with this other stripy yarn, because I didn't have enough of this left. This yarn is by Fibre, and it is in the colourway Elphabars Knickers, and it is a merino nylon blend. And I made a pair of socks in this yarn 2 years ago, and I used a little over half of the skein, so I knew I was going to be coming up a little bit short, and to eke it out a bit further, I added in these extra stripes. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 extra stripes, and it made it so there was just enough left over of the main colour yarn. I have a tiny ball left of maybe 2 colours of the stripes, which I can use for repairs at some point down the line, because I do wear my socks out on the ball of the foot, which is why on these I've actually done partridge slip stitch here and here in these areas that I wear my socks out, because this is in a merino and it wears out considerably faster than a commercial sock yarn. So I added in the extra slip stitches to accommodate that, and it really does make a big difference in those areas where I tend to wear my socks out. I don't tend to wear them out on the backs of the heels because I'm at home most of the time, so I'm not wearing shoes, so I don't bother on the backs of the heels. But my weak point is the ball of the foot and just before the heel, the bottom of the heel basically. So those are the last of my Halloween socks. I also did an autumn pair, and these ones I don't think I actually showed these on Vlogtober, because I think I probably started these after I finished recording, and I whizzed through these very, very fast because I was desperate to start Christmas knitting. More noises. These are a nice pair of autumn socks, just vanilla socks, same as everything else, and I really love these. I really love the colour of them. Originally, these were going to be a patterned sock. I was originally going to make the autumn cozy socks, which are also by This Handmade Life, and I have been meaning to make for several years, but I did one pattern repeat and found that it just didn't show up in this highly variegated yarn, so I just ripped it back to the toe and knit as a vanilla sock. The contrast toes and heels are more of the Drops Fable in 110, and the main yarn is Rico Super Bar Vintage, which is this yarn, and is in the colourway 003, which I've also seen called Salmon Mix or something along those lines. I'm pretty sure it's called Salmon Mix. It's actually looking quite a lot more white in that than it does in the sock, which concerns me because the last time I used the Rico Super Bar Vintage, I'd made a pair of socks for my husband, and then the remainder I made a pair of socks for me, and sock number 1 was considerably different to sock number 2. One was nice and evenly speckled and distributed, and the second one, it ended up being really dark micro stripes towards the end of the ball, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen with this. You kind of expect it with an indie dyed yarn, but not with a commercial sock yarn. But it's not the end of the world. It was just a bit disappointing at the time. So that is my last finished pair of socks. I'm trying to get things through things as quickly as possible, because the longer my video, the longer it takes for me to upload. Okay, way down to, that's all of my finished objects. They're all done. That's all the finished ones. We have just 2 works in progress. So my main work in progress is a cardigan. I started this 2 or 3 years ago, and I ended up ripping it back this year and starting it again. So it is a colourwork yoked cardigan with a steek, because I am making it into a cardigan, and it has, it has bird skulls on it, and you can see I am past the eye sockets on the bird skulls. The design isn't actually a cardigan, it is a swan shawl by Hannah Mann, and it is the Witching Hour swan shawl, and it is knitted in a DK weight yarn, and the yoke comes very low, and it also has very deep armholes as well. I'm not keen on the fit of a swan shawl, so what I'm doing is knitting with a fingering weight yarn, and therefore making the yoke smaller. And originally that is what I did a few years ago, and then I decided it would get more, it would be more wearable for me in my wardrobe if it was a cardigan rather than a sweater. I don't wear a lot of fancy sweaters for going out because I don't go out a lot, and I found that this one would probably come into that category rather than be worn at home, where if it's a cardigan I can wear it over a dress and stuff at home. So I had only just really started the top of the skulls when I put it aside, so I decided to just rip it all out and start again, adding a steek down the centre. I have added short rows at the back. It's quite a fine fingering weight yarn, it's the purple, which is why you can kind of see light through it, but when you're looking at it normally you can't, it's just the way the light is shining. And I am knitting these on a 3mm needle? 3.5mm needle. These are on my liquor needles. And I have many stitch markers between each pattern repeat because it's a little bit complicated to do otherwise. The yarns, the purple is one of my own hand dyed yarns from when I was a yarn dyer, and it is a non-superwash Blueface Leicester, and the kind of grey, beigey grey colour is an undyed oatmeal coloured Shetland yarn, and in a light fingering weight as well. Once this is blocked, this is gonna even out nicely, but my tension on my colour work the last year or so has been not great. I find my tension overall actually knitting has gotten worse over the last year or two. Unfortunately, it is not as good as it was a few years ago, but it'll even out a bit in the blocking process. So I am nibbling away at this. I'm trying to do a couple of rows every day. I think I did probably 5 rows yesterday, just to work at it. I did, for where the skull section is, I actually did ladderback jacquard, which I have done once before, and it didn't work out brilliant. You could kind of see where I'd started, but that was a mistake on my part. when you do leatherback jacquard, when you want to start it, you have to create a new stitch. So on the Halloween ghosty sweater that I had knit, I had just kind of done a, you know, you pick up the bar between the stitches, but when it's finished you can kind of see a little tiny hole where that bar pickup had been picked up, because that type of increase always looks a bit, to me, a bit sloppy. So this time I've done a left leg pickup increase. I'm not sure what those are called, and they have been made invisibly, which is perfect. I won't be doing any more of the jacquard throughout the colourwork because everything else is relatively short spans of colour, but over those skulls there was quite a long run of colour, and I didn't want to just be catching the floats at the back, because sometimes you can see them, and because it's such a high contrast with it being like an oatmeal colour, I didn't want it to show. So that is my main kind of thinky project at the moment. And the only other project I'm working on is, surprise surprise, a pair of socks. The Christmas socks, the first ones that I cast on. In fact, I finished the first one, so I can even put it on the blocker. I have many Christmas socks I wish to knit this year, both for myself and my husband. So I wanted to get started this month, and I am finished the first one of my first pair of socks for myself, and here it is. And I really like these. These are nice and bright and cheerful. The colours are both West Yorkshire Spinners. The main colour is this one, which is called Gingerbread, and the contrast colour is this green one, which I think is Spruce. They've just released some new colours, and they've released another dark green, which is darker than this one. It's closer to the other dark green I showed earlier. This one is Spruce, which is 1006, and the Gingerbread is 1109. I have only done the tiny bit of cast on my second sock, and I really want to cast on my husband's Christmas socks as well very soon. I like to have a couple of socks on the needles. This one last night I was working on and I cast off, and then in reality I didn't want to do the cast on for the second toe. If I'd had another pair on the needles where it was somewhere in the stockinette, I would have preferred it, so I could just pick up and mindlessly knit. So I think I will be casting on probably another pair of socks either today or tomorrow, so that I can have a couple in various places in various points of progression. That's one. So that is all of my current knitting projects. I have many Christmas projects, socks projects, as I've said, and I have all the projects that I want to cast on to, but I will talk about those in my Christmas and winter knitting plans video, which should be coming up soon. I am going to record that today, I think, maybe later today or tomorrow, I'm not sure, so that it's ready to go out. Whilst I've got stuff set up, I may as well do that too. Is there any other live stuff? Well, since my Vlogtober videos, is anything live stuff? Probably not, other than John is working in the sun lounge. In Vlogtober I showed that I'd kind of done half of the floor, stained, varnished it, tongue and groove floor that John had laid, and he is currently putting up the wall studs for the other half of the room, and so the other half of the floor can then go in as well. What else have we got? I think that's it. There's not a lot, fortunately not a lot goes on around here that is kind of different from the everyday. We did get an email through from the Real Seed Company to say the new seed catalog's out, so I think I will have to make my list of growing plans for next year and put in my seed order. It shouldn't be too long a seed order, I don't think, this year. I don't think there's many things I actually need to buy, but I know I need at least half a dozen different bits and pieces. So I've got seeds to order. I like to get those in nice and early. When I've left it till like in the new year in the past, there has been certain ones that I really wanted that have been out of stock, so I've learnt my lesson with that one. Still getting tomatoes from the garden. Amazingly, the weather has been so mild and so not windy that things are still growing. I have gladioli in the garden actually just flowering. Little flowers have just opened today and yesterday, and it's November. It has been so mild for this time of year, and we've never had it be this late in the year and not had to keep the heating on overnight, because we have solid fuel heating here. We have no like land gas or anything like that here, so it's solid fuel boiler, and we've never been this late in the year and not had to start keeping the stove on overnight. It's just been so mild. I think I'm gonna go now because the weather is actually really nice out there, and I could do with getting a couple of my vegetable beds, the vegetable boxes, kind of put away for the winter. They need weeding out and covering with black polythene and weighting down and leaving for the winter, because we don't plant things outside till quite late here. We have a short growing season, so they will be put to bed and left covered for quite a number of months. Otherwise they'll just be full of chickweed or full of, what is the worst? It's the creeping buttercup. It's the creeping buttercup. It's a pain in the bajaxy. So yes, I need to get them covered up. So I think I'm going to leave that here for this episode, because I imagine this is going to be quite a long one with there being so many projects. And I will see you in my winter knitting plans video, and I will also see you in the next podcast episode. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.